One of the things we do in chemistry is we use conversion factors to solve problems. And so I'm going to show you some techniques where you use one conversion factor or where you use multiple conversion factors. The beauty of this, some people call this dimensional analysis, some people call it factor label. But if you can master this, then you can work just about any problem in science, and it helps with dosage calculations and things like that as well. So what's a conversion factor? A conversion factor is a term that converts one quantity into another quantity. Okay, so remember me talking about how important it was that you had a number and you also had the units. Well, this is why. You have an original quantity with its units, and then you have a conversion factor, which is going to tie those two things together, and then you can convert it into the new quantity and unit. All right, and so we write them as equalities first. So one that we use in healthcare a lot is that there are 2.20 pounds in 1 kilogram. You use that a lot of times in dosage calculations when you're going to be, converting that and see how much you're going to give to a person based on their weight. And so it's an equality because these two things are equal to each other. And remember, when we talked about significant figures, I told you that they have an infinite number of significant figures, and so you do not worry about those when you're doing a calculation. But when I use these in calculations, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write them as a fraction because I want to be able to cancel units out when I'm using those to calculate certain quantities. All right, so if I start out with kilograms, I would need to write this as pounds over kilograms because kilograms would cancel each other when I wrote that in a equation. If I was using pounds, then I would need it to be kilograms over pounds. Since they're an equality, they're the same thing whether I have them right side up or upside down. You can write them either way. It just depends on which way you need to cancel your units out. So if the unit appears in the numerator, okay, that's top, in one term, and the denominator in another term, then they cancel out, okay? Because if you have 12 divided by 12, all right, that equals 1, right? If you have x divided by x, because they're the same thing, anything divided by itself equals 1. Since these are equalities, then if I have 2.2 pounds over 1 kilogram, that's also an equality, okay? All right, so if I have 130 pounds and I want to convert that to kilograms, I have a conversion factor that I can use, and that's my 2.2 pounds per kilogram. I know since pounds is going to be numerator, because this is the same thing as saying 130 pounds over 1, that when I use my conversion factor, pounds is going to have to be on the bottom or in the denominator. So I'll have to have pounds under here. So that means that the 2.20 pounds will be on the bottom, kilograms will be on the top, so I can cancel pounds and I'm left with kilograms as my only unit. If I do that and my units cancel like they're supposed to, then all I have to make sure is that I do the math correctly and I know that I will have the correct answer. So since I have pounds, as I said, I'm going to have to use this form because that will cancel pounds and leave me the kilograms. Since my original number has two significant figures because there is no decimal, so the 1 and the 3 are significant. It's 130 pounds times 1 kilogram over 2.2 pounds. The answer is 59 kilograms in two significant figures. The bottom conversion factor has the original unit in it, okay, in the denominator. So I cancel pounds and I'm left with what I'm looking for, which is the kilograms. So here's just a problem. How many grams of aspirin are in 325 milligram tablet? All right. So what I do is I take inventory and I say I'm given 325 milligrams and I want grams. Okay, so I need a conversion factor that's going to get me there. And if you remember back on your prefixes, you'll remember that 1 gram is the same thing as 1,000 milligrams. So that's the equality. And so I can write that conversion factor either 1,000 milligrams over 1 gram or 1 gram over 1,000 milligrams. I want to choose the factor that's going to cancel milligrams because remember I'm starting out with 325 milligrams. So I'm going to choose the one with milligrams in the denominator. So 325 milligrams times 1 gram per 1,000 milligrams cancels that unit and leaves me with my desired unit, which is grams. So then I multiply everything on the top, so 325 times 1, and then divide by what's on the bottom, which is 1,000, and that gives me 0.325. I had 3 significant figures in my measurement to begin with. I can have 3 significant figures in my answer. Sometimes they're going to be a little more complicated, and so I'm going to have more than one conversion factor needed. For example, if I don't know how many liters are in a pint, okay, so I have 1 pint and I'm wanting to change that into liters. Okay, well, if I know how many pints are in a liter, I could do that. If I don't, though, I look and see what do I know. I know that there are 2 pints in a quart, and I know that there are 1.06 quarts in a liter, and that's from my conversion charts. So I'm going to take pints, and then I'm going to use a conversion that's going to get rid of pints. So it's going to have pints on the bottom. All right, and if quarts is what I know, I don't want it in quarts, I want it in liters, so I'm going to have to find something to what? Cancel quarts, so I write quarts on the bottom, and I find a conversion factor that takes me from liters to quarts, and then I can work this problem. So I start with 1 pint, and I multiply that 1 quart over 2 pints, gets me to quarts, and then 1 liter in 1.06 quarts gets me to liters. Then my calculator tells me this really long number. How many significant figures did I have? I had 2 because I had a decimal in this number. And so my answer is going to be to 2 significant figures, which is 0.47 liters. So the key to this is getting rid of whatever unit you start with or whatever unit you have until you get to the correct unit. And there's more than one way to do most of these. So if you know a conversion factor, whatever's on your sheet, then you can do that. If you knew how many liters were in a pint, you could have gone directly from pints to liters.